Obviously, all of the high tensions, and just glad that everybody's here just in good faith to set the record straight for everything. So, because I knew how bad I am at public speaking and also how nervous I would be, I wrote this down in an email to myself. So I'm going to read it on my phone because you're
not the only one.
Right. So this is me speaking from me because I've been involved in this, and I had an incredible opportunity to be involved with Hemp History Week, so this is kind of just my thoughts leading up to it, okay? So I want to end prohibition. I want prohibition to end just as much as everyone else, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do this. I became involved with Ohio's cannabis advocacy in October 2013 after I learned that medical advocates in the state embraced the message of hemp as part of the strategy to unite Ohio's constituency around cannabis. At the time, I knew more about hemp than I did about the medical benefits, but I challenged myself to learn as much as I could from the cannabis community who had done their due diligence in challenging the political process. My parents are both medical professionals, which I'm extremely lucky to have that influence. My family has contributed to Ohio's agricultural industries for more than a century, and they have farmed organically over the last 20 years. I felt I had a lot to offer the effort, as my organizing experience comes from working with Ohio's local food networks as a food security advocate. Part of my work as a food security advocate was educating the disadvantaged urban community how to grow fresh produce in USDA-recognized food deserts in cities across the Rust Belt. Part of that responsibility was making sure that I wasn't encouraging people to grow their own food in post-industrial waste zones, so I became active in my local brownfields committee in order to become more informed about the hazards of polluted soils in the area that I was organizing in, which is throughout northern Ohio. I learned that Ohio has the worst groundwater contamination out of all 50 states. That in the last 30 years, the oil and gas industry has injected nearly 8 billion gallons of toxic waste underground in Ohio, with more than 500 million gallons injected in 2012 alone. Oil and gas waste from fracking is naturally radioactive because of the properties in the layer of shale that it's extracted from. In 2004, the state of Ohio removed local, municipal, and county rights to determine where oil and gas activities would take place. At the same time, the Halliburton loophole was enacted on a federal level, exempting the oil and gas industry from being held accountable to the Clean Air Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act, the Toxic Right to Know Act, and the laws that were in place to fund cleanups for major environmental disasters. It is no wonder people in Ohio are sick. Under these conditions, we are all patients. Our family farm is in the same watershed as Clyde, Ohio. Do you know about Clyde, Ohio?
Yep.
The cancer cluster there has claimed more than 20 deaths of children alone with rare, inexplicable cancers. Not only is there a toxic waste dump with a playground on top of it thanks to post-industry, but there's also a class 2 brine injection well that accepts radioactive fracking waste only a few miles from the location of that playground. Those responsible aren't going to be held liable for the cleanup. So what are we left with? The best solution that I'm aware of as far as next best steps is hemp legislation. And when I say hemp, I mean cannabis sativa L that contains no more than 0.3% of THC on a dry weight basis. Because of its agronomy, hemp has the potential to remediate contaminated soil and water, sequester carbon from the atmosphere, cleaning up air pollution, and making our future safer for everyone. It is a nonpartisan issue, which means traditional opponents of legalization agree that it is something that needs to change, and it has serious support on a federal level. Hemp has equally as important health benefits and can be available to people of all ages. Over the past year and a half of organizing around ending prohibition, I've learned much about the political framework of Ohio and the apathy, lack of faith many have in the overall political process, regardless of the approach. Political campaigns have never been more costly, and Citizens United allowed for anonymous, unlimited funds to tip elections no matter how much grassroots support an issue has. Note what happened with issue 2 in Florida this past election. In Ohio's most recent election, the registered voters who actively participate in the political process saw real voter suppression become aggressively apparent, especially for voters who were oppressed by the policy shift that permitted it. The majority of these victims of this dangerous precedent were minorities, who are arguably the biggest victims of the drug war. There weren't even enough people who cared enough to understand that this even happened to make it enough of an issue. Ohio's political landscape is a very dark and complicated one, and money controls every inch of the process now. Because of this reality, anyone who thinks the process to finally end prohibition in Ohio is going to look anything like what Colorado did right off the gate needs to take a long, hard look at what apathy, fear, and reactionary egos have done to our chances of getting anything accomplished at all. Which brings me to my major point. By tying something that is more politically divisive to something that's not, we are reducing the chances of getting good legislation to allow for hemp farming to begin renewing Ohio's economy and environment. As the founder of the Ohio Hemp Chamber of Commerce, this past summer into the fall, we were able to speak in front of bureaucrats from all over the state on all different levels of government about the benefits of hemp and the potential to remediate soils, remediate water, renew the soil, and feed people with a superfood. We were able to present these ideas incredibly, and I'm so glad that the people that supported us through that were there. We also joined the Hemp Industries Association. We started an Ohio chapter of the Hemp Industries Association. And because of my passion and the message, I was actually hired as the grassroots coordinator for Hemp History Week. Hemp History Week is a campaign of the Hemp Industries Association, which is a nonprofit trade group representing hemp companies, researchers, and supporters in the USA and Canada. The HIA and its members are dedicated to promoting the benefits of industrial hemp and to clearly distinguish between non-drug industrial hemp and recreational or medicinal cannabis, a message that has taken decades for lawmakers to understand and accept. While the HIA has expanded its advocacy to seek best practices for CBD medication and other cannabinoid research, just this year, because of the consciousness that everybody came into about how much more potential it has as a medicine. While the HIA has expanded its advocacy to seek best practices for CBD medication, all HIA members have agreed to not be involved in the promotion of marijuana, which puts me in a difficult spot, a really difficult spot. And while the Hemp History Week and the Hemp Industries Association appreciates the enthusiasm to educate communities on the benefits of hemp, the Hemp History Week campaign is unable to support any event that is actively promoting medicinal or recreational use of cannabis. And that is a policy that they have had in place for 20 years. We understand that this policy creates a difficult situation for cannabis advocates who wish to support hemp. And for those in these circumstances, the best way to support the message of hemp would be to encourage your state and U.S. representatives to support the reauthorization of hemp farming separate from any other type of cannabis advocacy when you do so. And this can be accomplished by using the Take Action information on Vote Hemp's website, as well as getting involved with the Ohio Hemp Industries Association. Will have the same information as far as how to promote that when we have legislation in Ohio.
Doing great one.
So, I appreciate your values. So, again, I appreciate your values. The Hemp Industry Association appreciates your values. The Ohio Hemp Chamber of Commerce appreciates your values. But we ask that you respect and preserve the message of the Hemp History Week campaign to avoid confusing politicians and the public, especially during this critical year of policy reform. The Industrial Hemp Farming Act of 2015 was introduced in the first session of the 114th Congress, which is huge, and it was done so by 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Oh my God, that's incredible. Incredible. And they got a sister bill introduced in the House of Representatives, so they're both moving through. HR 525 and Senate Bill 134, the Industrial Hemp Farming Act. All it does is just remove industrial hemp from the definition of cannabis under the Controlled Substances Act to allow for things to start moving along and taking place. It's still cannabis, which means that little shoe, that first shoe, if you guys can let that drop by just respecting the difference, that is one shoe of the cannabis prohibition ended. That's one, and then that will expand the greater consciousness of people who are ready to accept that it's a medicine, that it's not the devil's weed, that it's that is medicine that works.
Yes. Oh.
You can be eating it as a baby. Mothers can eat it while they're pregnant and don't have to worry about anybody challenging them. Thank you.
Thank you.